Welcome to Upleveling, the podcast dedicated to building better leaders, smarter systems, and bigger results. Welcome back, guys. I'm glad that you joined us again for another podcast episode. Today, we're going to reflect back on the last quarter. The timing of this episode is fantastic because we just wrapped up first quarter, and I want to teach you some CEO tactics that you can take into this next quarter to not only improve yourself, but to grow your business, which is what we're here to do. I want to talk about a recent, actually, I don't know that it was recent, a HBR study that showed that leaders who spent 15 minutes at the end of their day reflecting on the day, they were 23% more successful and they performed better than their peers. So let's just kind of think of that, because I think that sometimes we're so quick to go and see like, what's the next book I should read or course I should take, things like that, instead of reflecting on our own thoughts and what we know best and bringing that into our business. So sometimes we need to quit consuming and we need to reflect backwards. I'm going to teach you some of those tactics today because I really want you to understand that reflection is not fluff. It is a performance strategy. And if you want to be better, you want to grow a business, you have to grow yourself first. Because if you start to grow a business, you've never led or managed a business at that level before. So if your business is growing, your skill set and your leadership and your decision making needs to grow along with it. If not, you're going to find yourself with a business that you don't know how to run. Not that you don't know how to run, because there's a lot of things that CEOs don't know how to do, but you're going to find yourself very stressful because you haven't become the leader you needed to be for that size of business. So we're going to reflect today on ourselves as the CEO over the last quarter, but this is going to be a two-part series. So next time, we're going to reflect on the business and business operations. I'm going to teach you really how to be the CFO of your business and reflect back on that quarter. So we'll get into more financial and analytical type operation things. Today, we're focusing on you as the leader. I think it's important too to just mention that this is a tool and a skill that you need to build. And as you build it, you'll find that you're becoming more of a CEO who's reflecting on things instead of who is reacting to things. And when we can get out of reactive mode, we're going to be more successful because we're not constantly reacting to every single thing. We're stepping back and we're taking time to reflect, how can we be better? How can this business be better? And when you are in that mode, you're unstoppable. So keep that in mind as we go through this. Our first step is, and let me say first that we're going to have a downloadable list of these questions below, so you can find them there. So you don't have to write down and take notes. I really want you to sit in this conversation so that you can reflect on putting this into your schedule and using this as a tool to be better. So first, we're going to talk about what worked this quarter. It is super important for you to do this part because I know as a CEO, like it's so easy to come down on yourself and realize when things weren't working, what went bad, what went wrong, but there's always things that went right. We need to acknowledge those because this is really where momentum can pick up. I think that one of the negative, I don't want to say negative, but one of the misleading words or thoughts is that if we're running a business, we're doing something we love, we're always going to be motivated. Now, if you've been in business longer than a week, you realize that is not a true statement. And so we need to learn to build momentum and not motivation, because the momentum is what is going to keep us going. Once we see things working, that's when we want to continue going, and that's super important. So we're going to reflect back and acknowledge the success that we did have, whether it's small or large, because that part is irrelevant. If we're doing this every single quarter, then we're building that skill every single quarter. So just imagine how much better you're going to be as a CEO and as a leader at the end of this year. And that's not too far off in the whole grand scheme of things. So we're going to celebrate our wins. First question we're going to say is, what were my top 3 accomplishments as a leader? We're not talking about business growth, although that is important, but I want you to think about yourself as a leader and what you accomplished in your role. How did my leadership contribute to successes? So this is where we can really talk a little bit about business growth and how did you contribute to those wins, to those successes? And then what strengths did I leverage effectively? I want you to acknowledge what you are really good at and what strengths do you have that are great or better than other things, because this is super important to acknowledge what you're great at. What I want you to do is remember, sometimes when we're great at things, those are the things we focus on and we just keep doing those things and we don't think about the things we're not great at and we don't focus and improve those. So first, we're going to acknowledge what we are great at and write that down. Now we can see on a sheet of paper where we've been successful. After we've looked at that and what went well, I want us to reflect on what did not work. This is really where we want to improve, we want to grow. So we have to acknowledge the things that did not work. And this is where real world lessons just come into play, because I think that there is a myth that smart CEOs don't make bad decisions. And that is absolutely false. Smart CEOs and very successful CEOs make bad decisions all of the time. The difference is they reflect on their decisions and they're very fast at making another new decision. So we want to learn how to get into that space. How can we reflect sooner? How can we make faster decisions? Because you have to get it out of your head. I know I really struggled with this. So I struggled a lot with, why is this so hard for me, not hard for everyone else? Or these CEOs, they're so lucky because they make all these great decisions. Well, they're not talking about all the bad decisions they made. You don't get on LinkedIn and people's talking about what a horrible decision they made last week and how everything is falling. So you're not going to find that on social media, but I do want you to realize that it is normal to make bad decisions. But we want to reflect quickly and we want to make a new decision quicker than what we have in the past. We want to pivot very fast when things aren't working. We can only do that if we are reflecting, especially timely. But really, that is where growth happens. We don't know what we don't know, so it's okay to make a bad decision. It's not okay to keep making a bad decision. That's really what failure is. So growth is really where all of this is going to happen. So don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of failing because you made a decision, you never reflected and changed it. Let's get into what didn't work. We want to say, where did I struggle as a leader? Really think about that, and over the last quarter, situations that you were in that you wish that you handled better or you had a better tool to be able to handle it better. We want to think about what decisions or actions didn't produce the desired result. This is really important because we want to go back and see, were these emotional decisions or were these decisions made off of data? What decisions did I make and did not produce the result I thought that they would? And then lastly, we're going to say, were there recurring issues that I failed to address effectively? This one's super important because that's what can really snowball. You're making bad decisions and they're recurring decisions. And so it's just never going to get better until we stop and reflect and say, what about this can I do differently? Can I do better? How can I address this more effectively? That's going to sum up really what didn't work. And then we're going to get into the third step is, how can I be better next quarter? We've reflected on wins. We've reflected on what didn't work. So now we're going to put pen to paper on what can I do differently? What can I do better? And we really want to see, are there actionable goals for improvement for yourself as a leader? Let's jump into those questions. What leadership skills or habits do I need to develop further? I think that after each quarter, we all know, this goes back to that question of where did I really struggle? So think about that. What was that struggle? Where was I struggling? And then what skills or habits can I build to overcome that? So that's not a struggle anymore and it becomes a strength. It becomes something I'm really good at. And I want you to think about that. We're not born with all of these skills. I mean, yes, some people are, but skills are developed over time. And they're developed because we've put ourselves in situations to develop these skills. So if you're not great at something or there's something you struggled at, we want to focus on that because we have to improve our lowest skills in order to up-level ourselves, which is going to up-level our business. Then we want to ask, how can I better support and empower my team? It's super important to kind of reflect on that, on is there additional support I can give them or empower them with new skills? Does my team need more training? Do they need me to be a better CEO? In what area? How can I help my team to be the best? That's going to be one of those questions that if you're asking yourself that and you're reflecting on that, your team is going to know that. That's where you build culture and that's where you build loyalty and employees who really want to stay on your team, because they know you want them to be the best version of themselves. And we can only do that if we're reflecting on what they need from me to be better. And then we're going to say, what specific action will I take to improve my decision-making and communication? Now, I put this in here because I think those are two of the, the biggest skills that you need to develop. If you develop those things, you're going to be a much better CEO. And this is something I struggle with too. Like, communication is really hard for me because I didn't realize the amount of communicating I would have to do in growing my business. Really, from going from 2 employees to 8 employees, no one told me the amount of time that would be taken up in my week communicating. This is really an area that I can always improve on, and I try and build those habits. And that's really what we want to do in this reflection is, how can I make this a better habit? This comes down to time blocking, going through Slack, or time blocking, going through emails. Like, just becoming that better communicator is going to serve you really well. I want to just talk and say that I hope that this episode showed you the importance of reflecting. We don't have to be the best right now, but we do have to understand that becoming the best is a journey. And the only way to do that is to kind of look back and see what happened. So now we can prepare for what is coming up and what we want to happen in the next quarter. Who do I need to be in order to reach my goals in the next quarter? That's the ultimate question here. I hope that I've made this tactical for you. You can download these questions. I really want to advise you to go through these outside of your office. Go sit out by the lake, or go sit at a coffee shop if that's your thing, and go through these questions when you're not being interrupted, and you can really take the time to reflect on those activities and actions that happened. That's going to help you get into that mindset of your CEO brain. Let's kind of say that we're not looking for a book. We're not looking for a course. We're not looking for another podcast. I mean, that's really bad advertisement, right? But we're not looking to consume. We're looking to reflect, because the best answers are within us. I know that sounded really cheesy, but no, I'm not a life coach, but I sound like one right now. Hats off to all the life coaches out there, but this really works. That's why we're talking about it. What I want to leave you with, though, is in order for this to work, it has to be on your calendar. So what I want you to do is go ahead, put it on your calendar as a recurring quarterly task. Let's not say task, appointment with yourself. And this is where self-integrity comes in. We're going to keep the appointments with ourselves. So put it on your calendar so it really happens. And then I want to hear your feedback on what you pulled out of that. I think that's where your best ideas are going to come from. I know it is, because that's what happens for me. So part 2, I talked about a little bit earlier. We're going to dig into next time. I'm going to teach you how to be a CFO for your business and what a CFO would do at the end of each quarter to reflect, and then to make some goals for quarter 2. I hope you found this helpful. If so, feel free to share it. We love new listeners, so thanks for joining me today. Thanks for tuning in to Upleveling. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more entrepreneurs like you discover the show. Let's keep the conversation going. Connect with us on social media or visit AlignCPA.com for resources and updates. Until next time, keep leading, optimizing, and upleveling.